So welcome everybody. We are live once again. Thank you for joining us. And you may have been watching some of these interviews where I've been interviewing amazing people that I know. And Dr. Theresa Bullard is someone that I've known for many years through the Modern Mystery School, where she is a guide, a healer, Kabbalah teacher, alchemy teacher, the list goes on. She's also a doctor of physics and the presenter of the TV show Mystery Teachings, which is a worldwide success. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome her onto the show. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Now, I know we've only got a short amount of time, so if it's okay with you, I'm just going to delve straight in and just ask lots of questions. And Sherlock also wants to take part of that. So,
perfect timing, Sherlock.
We did say that before, didn't we? He's been silent all day, and now, of course, he's Sherlock. Let's start off with the first question. And this has come from a lot of people because I've been talking to them about you and interviewing you, and they really want to know your background. And they want to know, why did you get into science? What made you interested in science, first of all? Was it at school? Was it out of school? What drew you to that?
Okay, so my journey into science actually was, I guess I kind of stumbled into it in a way. I was between high school and getting into college or university and trying to, I was asking myself, well, what do I want to major in? Because that's a natural question that you're getting asked when you're applying for these different universities. And while my mom and I were on a road trip, now I knew I could do anything. Like, I was thinking maybe psychology, or, I had English teachers that were really encouraging me towards English and writing. And I enjoyed some of the science and the chemistry. But when I was on a road trip with my mother, we were going through Arizona and on our way to Colorado, and we were stopping off at different universities on the way. And while we were first at Phoenix and then working our way up to Northern Arizona, we decided to stop through in Sedona. Now, Sedona is a very mystical, kind of magical place, and we had a nice couple days there of just enjoying the red rocks and the vortexes, and just having a kind of more of a spiritual experience during the journey. And when we were heading out of Sedona on our way up to Northern Arizona, I was looking out the window at night at the stars up in the sky. And I thought, wow, it's so beautiful. And how I don't know if you've ever seen it, but in the desert, you can see just so much of the Milky Way. And I just was in awe, like, wow, it's so gorgeous. And I just realized, like, I want to know what's out there. There's so much more going on in this universe than our mundane little lives that we get so caught up in. And I want to know that. I want to know what's like more. And that's when I had this epiphany, this aha moment, like, oh, that's what I want to major in. I'm going to major in astronomy or astrophysics. And then what ultimately led me into physics was that the college that the university that I decided to go to was University of Denver. It was more of a smaller liberal arts school, but it felt like the right place for me. And I had a volleyball scholarship and an honor scholarship to go there. And when I went to ask the counselor, and they were asking me, what do you want to major in? I said, well, I want to major in astronomy. And he's like, oh, well, we don't really have astronomy here as a major. We do have it as a minor, but are you thinking of going into graduate school at some point? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, then what's most important is that you have a strong physics degree or physics background, and then you could go into physics or astrophysics or astronomy as a graduate school study. And I was like, I never would have thought of physics, but I guess I'll give it a try. So that's how I ended up starting off in physics. And it was a lot of push-pull. There were a couple points along the way where I thought, I'm not a cutout for this, but I kept going, and the universe kind of kept steering me back into it multiple times along my journey. And eventually I went all the way through to getting my Ph.D. in it.
That's amazing. So it's almost like the invisible world and the magical world pulled you more into the science.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely synchronicities and the universe guiding my path, I think, along the way.
So when you were studying, Sherlock is still being very vocal, I'm afraid. He's obviously very excited about this subject because normally he's quieting down a little bit by now. When you were studying, and there's a lot of scientists around you, how did that work? How were you able to express yourself in terms of, like the invisible world, and, how did they react to you?
Yeah, I didn't give him a chance. I had so when I was in college, it was, again, I was at a very liberal arts school, and I was more of an athlete and an honors student, and I just was doing my best to get good grades and get my degree, and I wasn't like super into the spiritual side. I did lead or help start like a wellness program for athletes at the university. And, we did some stuff like guided visualizations, a little bit of meditation and stuff like that, but it was very lightweight. It wasn't until I got into graduate school that I got more into my spiritual path that it became more prominent for me. So it was after my first year of graduate school. So spirituality prior to that point, it always just sort of been there. It was on the side. It was informing my personal philosophy and my background of view of how I looked at the world and life and all of that. But I never felt like I had to put it in front. But after my first year of graduate school, I was immersed in 80 hours of physics a week. So it went from having this life of diversity to just left brain science 80 hours a week. And there was no time for anything else. And after a year of that, I felt, this is really how I got on my spiritual path, is I felt depressed. I felt really dissatisfied with life, and I had been sacrificing too much of my well-being and what brought me meaning and purpose. And graduate school wasn't turning out, it wasn't at all what I was hoping it would be. And we couldn't really get into any of the philosophical, like I was very excited about the opportunity to go and talk about the meaning of quantum physics and, some of this high exotic physics stuff. And, what does this mean about us and consciousness? And it was like, you couldn't really talk about any of that. So there, the general feel I got when I was in my first year of graduate school was, don't ask questions about philosophy or meaning, just do your homework, pass your tests, learn how to drive these equations, and then, and your credibility is everything. So don't ruin your credibility, or otherwise you're not going to make it here. So there was this culture or environment there where it was very weeding out the weak ones kind of mindset in the physics department. And so I really kept quiet about any kind of spiritual nature that I might have had, but it wasn't essential for me at that point. But then after that first year, and I'm like depressed and I'm not happy with things, I'm like, why am I doing this? Is it worth it? And I decided I needed to really search for, I wasn't going to give up on it right away. But I needed to find some level of balance again. So I very systematically started bringing all the different aspects I had in my life prior to that point back in. So I brought in like athletics, and then creative hobbies and social time and all the different aspects of life that they say, this is what creates a well-rounded, balanced lifestyle. And another year goes by. Everything is feeling better. It's more balanced, but I'm still lacking something. Like I'm still not happy. There's still some fundamental piece of meaning and purpose and joy that's missing in my life at that stage. And I was at the gym one day, just, doing my workout and thinking about this in the back of my mind. And then this little voice kind of comes in as I think I was doing sit-ups, and this little voice comes in as I'm working on my core, my sit-ups, right? And it's like, well, there's one thing you have not yet brought back in that you had before. And I was like, well, what is that one thing? And then the voice comes in again, and it just whispers spirituality. And I was like, I didn't think it was going to be that important to me, but I tried everything else. And so it was the only thing I had to go off of. So I thought, all right, well, anything I'm going to pursue at this point, given how much I know scientifically to be true, I can't just go into blind faith or too much new aginess. So it's going to have to complement what I know to be true scientifically, or at least not negate it. And so I started to really pursue the intersections of science and consciousness, science and spirituality. And that ended up being the key. It just lit me up. I got really excited. It reminded me of that moment of when I decided to go into physics in the first place, that it was actually a spiritual inspiration more than anything else. And And so that started my personal sort of self-initiation, or my spiritual awakening. And I got so excited about it. But then the next thing was, exactly bringing us back to your question, was I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about it. Like I really wanted to communicate and connect with other people of like mind, and go dig into these deeper questions and philosophies and dialogue about the meaning of it all. But it was like I was afraid to bring it out in the physics environment, because I'd seen other graduate students get like really hammered and criticized by fellow graduate students and the professors for mentioning spirituality of any kind before. So I thought, oh, I can't do it there. So I felt like I was, in the closet spiritually in my, physics training. And then it took a lot of time over the years to just kind of come out a little bit more about, this is who I am, and I don't need to put it in anyone's face, but this is who I am. I'm not going to hide it anymore either. And so yeah, it's quite a journey. And it was only actually when I found the Modern Mystery School that I really felt like I found my tribe, because I'd done a lot of searching prior to that point, and went to lots of conferences and expos, and, found different groups, went to a Center for Spiritual Living. I went to all these different places trying to find that community of people where I could like really feel the connection and the depth that I was looking for. And it wasn't until I very synchronistically found my way to the Modern Mystery School that it's like, oh, this is it. This is my spiritual family and path.
It's amazing to hear that. It really is, because I know there's so many people out there. When I was at school, we were taught very science-led. It was very science-led. Yet we did have, this awareness of religion and God, but it was almost like you were silly or not very intelligent if you believed in that, and it was just something that was in the olden days. It's kind of like this, and for me, that was. I always loved, the possibility of magic. What if? And when I think about science, aren't they the questions that scientists should be asking all the time? What if? Just imagine. And so, having that thought, do you think that you are a better scientist because you have this awareness of this, let's call it the invisible world, the universe, God, whatever terminology you want to call it? Do you think that enhances your ability as a scientist?
Well, I would certainly say it enhanced my life in really, really essential and important ways. I feel that scientists are meant to be open-minded. And they're meant to be inquisitive, and they're meant to, not allow their biases to cloud their vision, right? And yet, my experience has also been that the more we've become entrenched in a scientific materialist approach to science and that paradigm, the more and more minds have closed. And the more scientists who've built their entire careers off of a particular paradigm or a particular theory, the more vehemently they have to defend that way of thinking and that way of seeing everything from that lens, that they do automatically allow their biases to shut out other possibilities. So it's often the revolutionaries are the ones who tend to be outside on the fringe, who are not going with the mainstream, and who are pushing the envelope and questioning the accepted theories of the day, right? So I feel that, yes, we as scientists, the more I was able to open my mind up, and I actually had to untrain myself from some of the rigorous programming to be skeptical. And the scientific way of thinking is very skeptical, like prove it to me first, then I'll start to give it some credibility, or then I'll start to believe it, rather than believing is seeing. And the magical view is very much, you have to believe to see in some way. So they're almost like opposites in their approach. But what helped me a lot as a scientist was right around, actually just before I found my way into the mystery school path, alchemy started showing up for me, because I had been putting it out there to the universe. Like, one, I wanted to find my tribe or my spiritual family. Two, I wanted to find a way where we could bridge the science and the spirituality, but in a way that was practical and grounded. And so alchemy started presenting itself to me. And at first I was like, alchemy, it's, just this pseudoscience of the Middle Ages or medieval times. And I'm a real scientist. I have nothing to learn from them, right? So I was also programmed with that sort of dismissiveness towards anything spiritual or alchemy or woo-woo. And yet I had the good fortune of having been raised by a mother that really encouraged me to have an open mind, especially around spirituality. And so I was exposed to a lot, and I always knew and felt there is this spiritual side to life. We don't have to dismiss it. And actually, the more I studied science and math, the more beauty and perfection I saw in the universe. And I thought, how could it not have some intelligence behind it, some purpose, some meaning behind it all? So to me, the more I studied science, the more it validated that there was a spiritual side to life. There was, a perfection, a harmony. And I think the original scientists, they actually were alchemists. They were very spiritual people. And it was only in the last couple hundred years that science and spirituality started to divorce themselves from each other. And I think that was more political and maybe money driven than anything else. It wasn't because there's a fundamental disagreement. Maybe there was a disagreement between dogma and religion versus what science was discovering. And those scientists wanted some freedom to be able to pursue their science and their art. But when you come back to universal spirituality, which is what I love with the mystery teachings, is that they complement each other. And I felt that made me see the whole picture rather than just the linear, logical, rational side of it all, which is only like seeing the whole world through your left brain. I got to see the whole picture. I got to see things from the right brain, the intuitive, and the left brain, and bring balance to the two sides.
I love that. And I love mystery teachings. And I'm always telling everybody about it, because I really believe, especially, my generation, maybe, especially in the UK, being brought up with that science-led, kind of, this is what we must think. It really does connect the two, and it explains it in such a way. It's like, okay, well, now this makes sense. It's like there's not a missing part, because before there was always a missing part. There's like, well, how can you have this without this? It didn't, what we're being taught in, maybe, certainly in my education, didn't feel like there was the whole thing there. So when you, if anybody hasn't seen Mystery Teachings, by the way, you must see it. It's amazing. And we're going to put the links in a while. So when you started studying at the mystery school, was there, that science, for people that are watching this and don't know about the mystery school path, and maybe when we say mystery school, people automatically think, oh, it's woo-woo, it's magic, it's this, it's, and we jump to all these conclusions. Would you say there is a science element to the path? And how would you describe that? Or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very much found a place for the scientific way of thinking within the mystery school path. And in fact, again, the roots of where science came from can be traced back to the mystery school teachings and tradition. Alchemy, hermetics, these are the forefathers of modern science. And so we look at things, for me especially, it was this combination of really coming at with an open mind, what is alchemy? And instead of just waving it away as some, pseudoscience and dead science of the past, it was like, no, let's just see and read about it. What is the essence of it? What is it? Why is it relevant to today, and so forth? And as I started to see that, I was like, oh, wait, this is where science came from. And there's so much more. This is a formula for how we transform and evolve and accelerate our own evolution. And then how we can also participate in that evolution of nature and society and our world and so forth. And I thought, whoa, this is a gold mine. Like literally the lead into gold of alchemy is the gold of the wisdom that you gain and the transformation that happens from within. And then as I came to the Hermetic teachings, it was like, oh, these are scientific principles, right? The principle of vibration and rhythm and cause and effect. I mean, these are all scientific principles that they're the core, the foundation of the mystery tradition and in the Hermetic, ancient Hermetic tradition. And then I also came to the Universal Hermetic Ray Kabbalah, the way we teach it in the mystery school. And I found that was also another gold mine. It was another key to how can I bring the science and the metaphysics and everything that I'd studied, from whether it's psychology to relationships to the physics of the universe to how our lives work and what's important for us to understand about life, and everything, all these different systems of study could be brought together into one cohesive, interconnected pattern through the tree of life. And so I really found these keys for helping to create that bridge between the science and the spirituality because of the mystery school teachings. So it is, and I find that the teachers within the mystery school tradition also are very much into science. Like, how do we understand quantum physics in this modern context, not just quantum physics? Let's look at string theory. Let's look at, some really deep aspects of where modern science is at today. And then how does that match up with ancient wisdom teachings? And, these ancient wisdom teachings might have had a little more of a metaphorical language to describe their visions. But when you look at the essence of that, what they were trying to describe from a visionary perspective to what modern science is saying today, at a very physical, practical level and mathematically, it's like they're very similar. There's often the same things. And that was one of the biggest things that struck me first is as I was reading about the story, the cosmology from Kabbalah. And then I was also at the same time in an astrophysics course at the University of Washington, and they were talking about the modern day astrophysics cosmology and how the universe was created. And I was like, oh my God, they're saying the same things. But these Kabbalists knew this thousands of years ago. So what else do they know that we can learn from in our modern day science? How can it help guide our scientific discovery process?
It's fascinating, isn't it? And what I'm really excited about now is seeing people such as yourself who are championing this to the masses, and people are really catching on to it. And I think that's why mystery teachings is such a success, because we want, we have to know that our ancestors already knew all of this amazing stuff, and there's so much more to know, and it's all within us. And oh my goodness, it just gets so exciting, doesn't it? It's like when we start talking about it, and that's what I envision science classes to be in schools in the future. That's what I would like that to be, and to get that fire of excitement by linking the magic. Do you think this is possible?
I think, I remember the first time I started studying sacred geometry, for example, and I thought, God, why don't they just teach it this way in high school? Because if I had learned geometry this way in high school, I would have been a lot more engaged in it, right? Because we can do the mathematics of, how to work out all the different angles and sides and lengths and stuff of the geometry, and understand the intricacies of it mathematically and geometrically. But what about the meaning, right? And the sacred geometry brings the meaning in it and the practical applications of how this applies to our lives. And I think it's far more interesting to then engage kids in an experiential practice with these geometries, not just a mathematical approach to it. So I think that the two approaches, the physical and the metaphysical, become like two halves of a whole, that when we can bring them both into the education system, it will deliver something that really sinks in at a much deeper level versus just being information in our head that we then forget later. And I found the same thing with, if you could bring some of the alchemical kind of teachings back into the chemistry lab and weave the two together. And, I even found when I was doing my dissertation work, I was in a chemistry lab. It's a crystal growth lab. And all of a sudden I walked in and I was surrounded by images of crystal structures, which were sacred geometry. And I was like, oh my God, look at all of this sacred geometry around me in the crystals. And it just it helped me have such a deeper appreciation for nature and how nature grows according to these principles. And yet there's also that meaning behind it. So I hope that we can, at some point bring these two together into a place of acceptability and recognition of the beauty that these two sides bring forward. It's the science and the art, not one at the expense of the other.
Definitely. And I've noticed, having that experience, that direct experience, is something that we, very much promote in the mystery school. It's like, everything we do, we apply a protocol, we apply that, that system, and then you go out and you try it and you experiment. So that in itself is science, that. The science of life, which is amazing, and I think one question that I have to ask, because I know we're kind of running out of time now, but one question that somebody asked me to ask you is, is it possible to explain the life activation from a scientific point of view? And the life activation is a session that we provide in the mystery school that is life-changing. It's a tool of empowerment, and people often think it's just this wooey thing. Is it possible to explain that scientifically?
Well, I have my theories of how we could explain it scientifically, but we haven't actually done the experiments yet, but we're in our process. We're in the process of getting ready to do those. And my theories are something I have actually described in great detail. It was like an hour-long episode of Mystery Teachings, season 2, episode number 2, on our, DNA potential and so forth. And it talks about how the DNA actually interacts with the quantum field. It talks about how the DNA is receptive to coherent energy, light, biophoton fields. It talks about how words and certain tones and frequencies can be modulated and communicated into the DNA, and that the DNA actually does respond to all of this. So it's more than I can describe in 2 minutes, but there's definitely, if people are interested in that, how science might possibly explain what we're doing with the life activation, and then also how the mystery school kind of views what it is we're doing at a deeper level, with talking about the tree of life and that structure of the DNA and what it is we're actually going in there and activating. It's all there in my episode 2, season 2 of Mystery Teachings on Gaia TV.
Brilliant. I'm going to put that in the comments, everybody. It's a must see. It's amazing. And final question, what is next for you, Theresa? What's on your, because it's like you've got the mystery school teachings, that a massive show across, it's worldwide. People are emailing me all the time about it, that they've seen it, they want to do, what you're talking about. That it's funny, I get these emails. I want to do what that lady on the TV is talking about. So I often get these random emails. It's lovely, and they already know about mystery school from your show. And then of course you're teaching Kabbalah, universal Kabbalah, all over the world, and you teach alchemy, and you're writing a book. What's coming up for you?
Gosh, so much. I just moved to the UK, or I'm in the process of moving to the UK. So I'll be offering more here. I'm also going to be back and forth, between the US and the UK. So I'll be doing a US tour in June. And then I am, as you mentioned, there's a book coming out. So I've been really kind of head down lately in the midst of trying to get a move in the process, writing this book, which is based on, how do we weave together where science is at today with modern physics, quantum physics, modern cosmology, some of the sort of more recent stuff of various unified, grand unified theories, and how does that match up with the ancient metaphysics, the Hermetic teachings, the Kabbalistic teachings, the alchemy, and we're weaving it together. It's a book. The working title at the moment is called Through the Hologram: A Portal to Quantum Consciousness, and I'll be drawing from a lot of the teachings are delivered in the first season of Mystery Teaching. So it's kind of, really heavy on the science, but delivered in a way that anyone can understand and really understand how it also applies to our life and what it means for us and our perception of who we are and our place in this universe and how we can really accelerate and support our leap in consciousness. So those are the big things on my to-do list, my plate coming up here. And then hopefully as I get into next year, I'll start settling into teaching more in the UK and hopefully even touring some of Europe. And yeah, it's all very exciting.
It is very exciting. And I am so grateful for all of your work because, I know there's so many people out there that have found, the path or found the connection to to Magick through science and through your promotion of that, and I think before it could have been cut off from even being a possibility, and we've got comments coming here saying yes, I found the mystery school through Theresa, and we've got comments coming through, so this is wonderful. And
right.
I just think it's just amazing work because, there's a lot of people out there that perhaps wouldn't have been, open to the possibility, and it's just wonderful. We are very happy to have you in the UK, and I am super excited because we've got lots and lots of things planned and lots of classes, and I know the people in the UK and Europe are just going to be super excited to actually work with you in person, have you teaching their classes. So lots more to come. And Theresa, would it be okay if I just popped your website details in the comments, and so people can see what you've got coming up and what have you?
Yeah. TheresaBullard.com. That's pretty easy to find.
Yay! Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kate.
And we'll see you very soon. When we all get out of lockdown, we'll be having afternoon tea and all sorts.
Yes. Hopefully that'll be sooner than later.
Yes, please. Yes. So thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.